So, earlier this week, there was a bunch of news coming out from Famitsu magazine where Sega was apparently telling them that they were going to have some sort of crazy big announcement and reveal that was going to be some insane shakeup to the industry. Now, I am paraphrasing when I say that, but the general gist of the sentiment was that Sega was going to have some crazy thing and it was going to change the way we looked at Sega or the way we looked at gaming, or something like that. It was potentially exciting. I mean, in and of itself, that sounds like a cool idea, especially coming from a company like Sega that's been such an integral part to the gaming industry for decades. However, we also learned earlier this week one of these announcements. There's actually a couple of things that they've been talking about as far as trying to change what's happening with gaming. And really, the only thing that's grabbed any attention is this one thing we're going to talk about today, which in no way, shape, or form is changing the gaming industry. But it is making a big splash. It's making many waves. People have a lot of opinions about it, and I think I'm one of the only people that has actually a fairly positive opinion about it, and so that's what I want to talk about. And that announcement, as you well know, is the Game Gear Micro, which is a mini Game Gear, I should say a collection of mini Game Gears that's celebrating the 30th anniversary of the portable console. And that's what it is. So there we go. We've seen NES Minis and SNES Minis and TurboGrafx Minis, PlayStations, even Sega Genesises. And now, Genesises? How would you say that? I don't even know. The point is, Sega now comes along and is also adding more into the fray, into this heated mini console battle, by taking the first of the portable machines and making that even more mini than it already was. And so this is really kind of weird, but like I said, I also think it's kind of cool, but I'm going to have to get into that and dissect this a little bit because overall, the response to this has been overwhelmingly and by the vast majority negative. People are not excited about this. They don't like what's happening with it. They don't agree with the business model Sega is putting out there. And I do understand why, and we are going to get into that. But I do want to make a point that I actually think that these are more cool than they are not cool. So what we're seeing here is, again, 30th anniversary. Sega's making these Game Gears. They have a bunch of stuff up on their website. I've used Google Translate to kind of, convert the text into English so that I can read it. And it, of course, is not perfect English. It's just a Google Translate version of English. But I want to read this one little statement that they have about the purpose of the Game Gear here from Sega's Japanese website. Game Gear was the only portable game console in Sega's history. It was loved by game fans all over the world as a pioneering color LCD mobile hardware. In commemoration of the 30th anniversary of the release of such Game Gear, it will be revived as a, quote, playable mascot that fully condensed its charm. And so, again, I'm going to link the website below. You should go and look through the rest of the info here. They have these great high-definition pictures of what's going on. But you can tell from the Google Translate version of this main statement here on their Japanese website that they're just celebrating the 30th anniversary of the console, and the fact that they use the term playable mascot, which again is a translated version of that, but if we look at the what that says in English, a playable mascot, it kind of helps me understand exactly what I think Sega is trying to do with these and how they're treating them. Now, to fully understand what's going on here and to understand everyone's varying opinions on this, we have to look at what they're actually doing with these things. First and foremost is the size. Holy freaking cow. These things are so tiny. They state on the website that it's actually less than 40% of the size of the original Game Gear, which is crazy. And I'll tell you guys, my younger brother and I did have a Game Gear growing up. He actually owned the Game Gear. I owned an Atari Lynx, and it was a great old time. We loved having these cool color consoles at a time when the Game Boy was dominating, but was also not really in color. And even when the Game Boy Color came around, it still wasn't quite the same because it wasn't as advanced, and it also wasn't backlit. But the Lynx and the Game Gear were backlit color screens that had, to be fair, better graphics capabilities than the Game Boy. Obviously, the Game Boy had the better library and therefore became a more impactful console, but the Game Gear was still cool. We definitely enjoyed having it. I thought it was really cool having access to a Game Gear. I played many, many games on that thing. And so it's smaller than the Game Gear, which is kind of a big, fat, beefy box back in the day. Also, this is one of the things I don't think is great. It does take 2 AAA batteries. I believe it's only 2 AAA batteries, and that's unfortunate, but it's also kind of a great way to emulate 90s portable gaming. So I don't know. We're all cracking jokes about the poor battery lives. And yeah, that's true. But I think, I don't know. I see what they were trying to do. I don't love it. And I do think that it does have a USB or maybe a USB-C plug on it, it looks like. That should also hopefully allow you to charge it through like a USB. So if it also offers that, that would be pretty cool as well. So it's mini, I mean super mini, in the palm of your hand, tiny, and it uses AAA batteries. And then the other big thing, this is where people are losing their minds. There's 4 different versions, all different colors, and each 4 of them have different games. And you can see here what these games are. So you've got 4 consoles, 4 games a piece, so 16 games in total. And most notably, the Japanese price translates to about 45 to 50 US dollars. And so, if somebody wanted to get all 16 games, it's a pretty hefty price tag. We're in the range of $200, and to be fair, that's a lot of money. And so yes, the price and the fact that it requires $200 to own all of the games here is what has people most up in arms, okay? It's a big deal, it's a big conversation. And, you know, obviously, I'm going to agree with this part, okay? Yes, if you're trying to look at this as the most serious gaming device that's absolutely trying to compete in the already competitive video game market or even the mini console market, yeah, they're charging way too much to have to get 16 Game Gear games on like a retro device, okay? However, here's the reason why, to me, I'm actually not really bothered by this, you guys. When I actually saw this in the ad that was playing on Twitter last night, I was like, oh, this is cool. There's 4 different ones. They're all different colors, and each one has its own collection of games. And at this point, I had even already seen the price floating out there of around $50 or so US. The reason I'm not really mad about it is I don't think that this thing is trying to be a serious gaming device, right? And I think that most people who are upset about this or making fun of this or calling Sega so dumb for doing this, I think that a lot of people are maybe analyzing this too much. I think that there's a little bit too much scrutiny being put on these things, and people are analyzing it from like the serious video game industry lens and not from the toy lens, because I'm going to be honest, that this is just the way I see it. If you guys disagree, that's okay. But the way I see it, I see these as kind of just toys. I don't think this is supposed to be competing with the Nintendo Switches and the 3DSs of the world. And I only barely see it as competing with something like a Sega Genesis Mini or a Super Nintendo Mini or any of that stuff. I mean, obviously they were inspired by that, and they, of course, made their own Genesis Mini. And so, yeah, this is obviously inspired by that kind of, you know, this current trend that's happening of mini retro consoles. But the way they're doing these, even at the $50 price per, I don't know. I don't think that this is supposed to be this isn't about being competitive. I don't think Sega's trying to win any battles in any markets with this. I think these are just cool, nifty products that are essentially toys that are just meant to get out there mostly for the sake of collectors. I don't think they're worried about trying to sell people a serious gaming device. If they were, they wouldn't make it so mini, like probably smaller than most of our cell phones. They wouldn't make it that way. They would make it something a little bit more practical. I think it would be bigger, and I actually do think they would have more games on the device if that's what they were trying to do. Since they're doing something different, they're just making 4 little collectible toys to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Game Gear, then yes, they are playing the business mode, okay? They're going into business mode, and they are trying to make a crap ton of money and a crap ton of profit. And that's where splitting the games up into 4 apiece and selling them for as much as $50 comes from. That's where that comes from. They are playing the business thing. They're trying to take advantage to a degree. I get that. I acknowledge it. I'm not crazy. I know what's happening here. But from a business move, I think it makes sense because I don't think they're positioning this as competition. And when they're not competition, they're just cute little collectible toys. Even at $50, I think they're cute little collectible toys. It becomes far less offensive to me to see these things as $50 a piece for only 4 games. Because I don't know how many times I can say it. I just think that they're toys. I liken these to the modern day 2020 version of like the old Tiger Electronic handhelds. And any one of my fellow 90s kids out there will remember what it was like when those things were like the bee's knees and we were all taking them to school and hiding them in our backpacks and hoping teachers wouldn't take them away. I had a Mortal Kombat one, I had a Jurassic Park one, I had, I think, a Mega Man one at some point. And they were like, they weren't very good, but they were so cool at the time, and it was just amazing to have them. I also had some Game Watches that were made by Tiger that did the same thing, and I thought those were amazing. I had a Mario one, actually. And like, those were things that just was like, here's your one device that, granted, probably sold for like 20 bucks at the time, way less than 50, yes. But you would buy one device for one price, and it just had one crappy game on it. And so you were collecting these individual things to just have one game. It had the branding and coloring and packaging of that one game on it. And so there you go. Here's your stupid little Jurassic Park Tiger handheld thing for 20 bucks. That's what it was. It was just one game. You weren't playing multiple games or switching them out, okay? And I think that in 2020, when companies are doing a lot to make money off us with their retro products, and I mean every company, Nintendo, Sony, Sega, who put out the TurboGrafx, whatever company was responsible for the TurboGrafx, they're all making tons of money on us just because we're nostalgic for retro gaming. And this is just another thing, but I see it as a slightly different camp. I mean, hell, you even know it's not a serious gaming device because they have to sell this little magnifying glass device that you can put on these things just to be able to see the screen big enough to actually play it. I mean, that to me shows that it's not really something you're supposed to sit down with for hours on end and be like, I'm going to play Sonic the Hedgehog. Oh, I'm going to play this Game Gear RPG. No, you're doing this. We're going to do this. It's not serious. It's not competing with the Switch or the 3DS, you guys. I just don't see it that way. And so at the end of the day, are they being a little bit too greedy and charging a little bit too much money to get all 16 games if you want them? Yes, I do agree with that. If you wanted to collect 16 old Game Gear games in 2020, it shouldn't have to cost you $200 to get them all. But when I see what these products are, and I see them as the thing I laid out to you, several times in this video, as collectible little toys, I don't see it as a huge problem. I definitely want to own these, okay? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to play into the system, and I will buy all 4 of these, okay? Probably not at once, because I don't want to drop $200 on 4 of these things, but maybe one every couple of weeks. Again, I say that if they even come to the States. Maybe they don't, but if they do, and I'm sure that they will, yeah, I'm going to buy these things. I'm going to buy them all. What are you going to... I mean, so what? So sue me. I just think that they're really cool for what they are. I'm a child of the 90s. I have major love and nostalgia for 90s gaming. I am a complete sap when it comes to that stuff. And so I don't mind spending my money on these things because I think that they're cool for what they are, Also, I'm curious to see what it will be like to play on a screen that small and see how well the games look, considering how old they are. It's going to be very an interesting experiment for sure. But I don't know. For me, I just see this as unoffensive. If I could sum this up in any way, it would be to say that these to me are unoffensive, not a problem. They don't speak to any larger problems in the video game industry like season passes and DLC and microtransactions do. They're just dumb toys, you guys. That's my personal opinion. You may disagree, and if so, you can yell at me below about little Sega Game Gear toys if you are that upset about what these things are. So you've heard what I think. You've heard my thoughts and opinions. You know what I feel. I think these are cool, and I'm going to buy them. What do you think, man? Let me have it. I want to hear all the hate and anger you have. Yell about the Game Gear Micro below, man. I got to hear what you have to say. And so with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob for Live to Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.